the Fed.
Ron Paul was fired up then with the Fed. Well, guess what? He's not wishing them a happy 100th birthday now. Yeah, that's right. 100 years ago, President Woodrow Wilson signed the act that created the Federal Reserve. Former presidential candidate and Republican Congressman Ron Paul, well, he wants to kill the Fed before it can turn 101. Congressman Paul, it's always a pleasure having you on the show. You know, I think people should know we had a first central bank that was killed off after 20 years. We had a second central bank that was killed off after 20 years. Why has this beast been allowed to grow for 100 years?
Well, I think the people are too complacent, and we have to admit that the management has changed, and they've been able to manage the bubbles and the distortions a little bit better. But to me, that just makes our problem bigger because we're in the midst of that prolongation of the inflationary period, and that's why we're in this great recession and a depression for many people. But that doesn't justify the use of central banking. I mean, we have very, very structural problems in our economy, like unemployment and steady rising prices, and all these things are continually, building, and they're with us. So it doesn't change my mind about the central bank or the Federal Reserve.
Yeah, but it took strong personalities back in those days to get it squashed, and that was after 20 years. Is there a way now? I mean, is this something that we have to live with from here on out? Because I got to be quite frank with you. $4 trillion balance sheet. I don't see any noticeable difference on Main Street from all of these Fed actions.
Well, no, I always work to try to work our way out of problems, gradually reduce spending, back off on the inflation. But I'm convinced after my years of experience in Washington that it's going to end in a collision, an economic collision, where there will be a collapse of it. I mean, something equivalent to what happened to Detroit. The debt becomes overwhelming and people start backing off on the credit. Well, that can happen to us, nearly happened to us in 79 and 80, but we got by with it and we tightened up and we saved the dollar for a while. But I think that's the way it's going to end. That's the way most of them end. Most of the bad inflationary fiat currencies end. And you can destroy a currency gradually over many years, and you have ups and downs. And that's what we have done so far. We've eliminated 98% of the purchasing power from the dollar that the Fed inherited. But when people finally lose confidence and wake up and say, this is unsustainable, and we no longer can prop up Wall Street, then there is a panic out of the dollar and out of the system. So I think the end stages are what we should be concerned about. I think they're getting closer all the time, and they're going to be very serious. And then we'll be out of the Federal Reserve business. We'll have to, do major revampings or get rid of it and have new monetary policy. But that's on the horizon. It's coming, but it's probably not going to happen next year. It's going to be a while.
Yeah, it's real tough when you describe a sort of a dawn of the dead, end of the world, catastrophic fiasco as being the only way out of it. But to your point, and from history, human nature is such that it takes those kind of things sometimes to give us a wake-up call. Congressman, I want to shift gears a little bit. I want to get your reaction to something that Senator Harry Reid said. He actually complimented your son, Senator Rand Paul. Take a listen.
I met in the last few days with Rand Paul. I have grown to really like him. He wants to get things done here. And I find that throughout the Republicans.
It always feels good when someone compliments your son. My son is 17, and anytime he gets a compliment, I feel good about it. Political ploy, or just where does that put you? How do you feel about that?
Well, I always keep my fingers crossed. I'm always hopeful. I'm basically very optimistic about young people and the future. But, I would say that is good. I'll keep my fingers crossed, and I hope that means something. But from my experience, I would be not betting a lot of money that there will be a major change, but that's always hope so. It's the same way with negotiations with Iran. I keep hoping this would be a new phase for us, but I wouldn't, bet on these things because of the nature of the human nature of so many of us. So I don't know what his strategy is by being complimentary. Maybe it's the fact that Rand was willing to talk to him, and I encourage everybody to at least talk to people and try to work their differences out. But I don't think this is the great breakthrough that everybody would hope that we'd have, where people started talking about how to reduce the size and scope of government. That's the only thing to me that's important.
Well, I got to tell you, to your point, at least we do send these people to all of you guys in Washington, D.C., to at least begin a dialogue and see if we can fix this somewhere. So maybe a step in the right direction. We always appreciate having you on. Merry Christmas, sir. We'll talk to you again real soon.